Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the sport where no one seems to know where Floyd Mayweather is, and no one seems to know if Floyd Mayweather's okay. These are worrying times for the Mayweather army, but we proceed with the big news that's happening in quite a flat week of British boxing. It's interesting that Matchroom had a next gen show that it seems only three people watch and about two people have talked about between Friday and now, and that's worrying. It's a worrying sign of a lack of star power. And I guess this is what Hearns realized, that once this generation of 34, 35-year-old boxers, your Joshuas and your Lee Woods, is gone, there's not really much to follow that. And that's why you've seen him aggressively pursue people like Jerome Ennis. But Brits aren't going to feel the same way about Ennis. And the problem with Hearn is he's burnt so many bridges with the hardcores that the hardcores aren't going to go full obsessive just to support him. Like, I think they've had enough of him jerking off and disrespecting the hardcore fans by just splashing it in their face. And so, how Hearn rebuilds his stable, it's probably a conversation for another podcast. But these must be stressful times for Hearn, and you can see that he's got no one to lash out on now that Frank has to be an ally for the sake of the Saudi money. He's now turning his attention to Oscar, right? But you're under the same umbrella. And under that same umbrella, in terms of shows being put on by promoters, Oscar's smoking Hearn. And that's where we can start. And let's just start with the fallout from the Ryan Garcia situation, because that victory tour is still going on. First thing I want to say, and I think this is a very important message, is let's hope those close to Ryan will wrap their arms around him at some point and say, you need to stop all this. You're a boxer. Get back to the gym, get back to some structure and routine. And, let's make sure you're ready, because, at some point, someone's going to pull a fast one and say, look, we need to fight in 3 months or the fight's not going to happen. And then Garcia's going to try and, get ready, and he's not going to be ready. And he's got to study boxing history and understand this is exactly what befell Roberto Duran in his Sugar Ray Leonard duology. Duology? I think so. I think that word works. But the least edifying part of this whole thing, I think the bit that was embarrassing, is when Bill Haney went full Alonzo Harris. If you've seen Training Day, you know what I mean. So initially, after the defeat, Bill Haney doesn't want to say anything. He's full of praise and he's humble and he's, Allah's a perfect planner. They kept, reciting that mantra. And we're like, okay, cool, they're going to take this with grace. But we knew that would leak at some point, because Bill Haney's prone to let the feminine side of his character express itself more often than not. Now, we can go all the way back to the story, but in essence, Mayweather's talking about why Haney lost. And Floyd being the ultimate troll, and he is, right? He is, because Floyd watches everything. Floyd listens to everything. And so Floyd knows that people are saying, you know what, Devin might be a better version of Mayweather. And there were people saying this in some of these Facebook groups and Facebook pages. Devin might be better than Mayweather. And the justification was, when was Floyd undisputed? Devin's been undisputed at 135, and they believed he could be undisputed at 140. And they're saying, right, if he goes 2 weight classes undisputed, that would make him better than Mayweather. It'd make him a better proponent of that style than Mayweather. And so when Ryan Garcia did what he did, you can imagine Floyd's like, I told you so. So Floyd goes into that troll mode when he's got to protect his undefeated record and he's got to protect his reputation. And so he starts to break down all the things Haney does that aren't right. And Floyd quite rightly said, everyone wants to be Money May. Everyone wants to be Pretty Boy Floyd. No one wants to be Floyd Mayweather from Grand Rapids. And he said if more boxers were Floyd Mayweather from Grand Rapids, more boxers would end up as Pretty Boy Floyd. So in the midst of Floyd doing Floyd, right? We know Mayweather does this. It's pantomime villain time. Floyd just does what he does. He gets his moment to steal the attention from everyone and, remind people that he's the greatest of all time. He does all of this, right? And normally, you just kind of let it happen. It's entertaining. It gets views. And if you're part of it, it helps your brand grow as well, right? Fair enough. Alonzo Harris. Bill Haney's like, nope, we're not going to do that today. And Bill Haney jumps in. Now, The problem with Bill Haney jumping in to argue with Floyd is Bill brought his son to Floyd Mayweather because he wanted his son to be like Floyd. So Bill Haney's really got no case to be arguing with Floyd Jr. about anything. Yeah. So Bill comes on, like I told you, full Alonzo Harris. He talk about he's still in the streets, and why isn't Mayweather in the streets? Bill's like, I'm in the streets all day, every day. And for the first time, I think in probably the last decade, Mayweather came out as a voice of reason, and he's like, talk about the streets is dumb. We do what we do to get away from the streets. Why are you still in the streets? What's Bill Haney? He's got to be in his 50s, right? And I guess this is the problem with Americans. Let's say a lot of black Americans, they feel beholden to this idea of crime and poverty. That's really what they mean when they say the streets. They don't mean people suffering, because, as you see in hip hop, they routinely make fun of people being broke. One of the few communities on this planet that comes from poverty and makes fun of people that are in poverty. So Bill just goes full street, and he's trying to reveal trade secrets, talk about how Floyd got touched up in sparring and all this sort of stuff. And Mayweather quite rightly said, and this is what I mean about Floyd being the voice of reason. Who would have thought it? Floyd quite rightly says, what matters is what goes on under the lights. And under the lights, I'm undefeated. Imagine Mayweather, with his record and his legacy and his impact on the sport, under attack from Bill Haney because maybe someone got the better of Mayweather in half a round of sparring, because someone landed 3 punches on Mayweather. And this is what I mean about sometimes you've got to kick people out your team just for their basic lack of intelligence. You're going to argue with the guy you went to Vegas for. You're going to argue with the guy who you couldn't emulate. You don't have his chin. You don't have his skill. You don't have his ability to make adjustments. You, as Bill Haney, are not Floyd Sr. You're definitely not Uncle Roger. You are not of those capabilities. By the way, I reread that article about Roger Mayweather beating the life out of Melissa St. Ville, which is, it's a harrowing story, actually. And sometimes I think in boxing, we put people on a pedestal and we forget what they've done in the past. And I don't think we should. Because poor Melissa St. Ville, her career never recovered from that. Like, if you follow her on Instagram, you'll see that she's probably battling inner demons every day. But she manages to show up and do her thing. I feel for her. Because, like, that never got talked about when Roger passed. It never got talked about during his career because, we know that boxing media, in general, is on a very tight leash. So, switching back to Bill Haney, these attacks on Mayweather made no sense because Floyd is what everyone aspires to be. And it shows that Bill doesn't take defeat well. And this lack of intelligence comes down to the fact that he doesn't realize he's part of the problem. He keeps talking about me and my son have a special bond. If you have a special bond, you need to tell him, I can't take you to where you need to get to. I've tried. Because however you want to slice and dice it, Ryan Garcia beat the brakes off of Devin Haney. And I didn't even realize this. One of my boxers reminded me that on the day of the fight, I was asked who I thought would win. And I said, I think Ryan Garcia will win. I think he'll drop him a couple of times. I can't believe I said that. But I don't know if I'm high on Ryan Garcia because I don't know which Ryan Garcia shows up on any given night. But one thing we've learned with Ryan is that left hook is a dangerous weapon. He's hurt a lot of good people with it. And if his next fight is going to be Rolly, which would make sense because it's a less high-profile fight. It's a fight that can be easily made. And, Rolly can eat those left hooks as well. We'll see that that power is serious. But I think a lot of people are starting to diminish, and this is wrong. A lot of people are starting to diminish the fight he had with Tank Davis, talking about he was weight drained and that's why he didn't do anything. No, he was outboxed. Like when you're weight drained, I get it. You don't have the pop and the spring, but tactically he was outthought, man. Like as a southpaw, Tank had his way in that ring. You know, all the things that won the fight for Tank are things that aren't contingent on weight. People are going to talk about, oh, well, he could have taken the punch better. There would have been more. That would have been harder. It would have been more accurate. He would have got more tired. Weight cut or no weight cut. So let's not diminish what Tank Davis did. But I guess we're in that season now, aren't we, where for the people who are fans of comedians, when Cat Williams went crazy on Club Shay Shay and outed virtually every comedian, and look at how many people got a bit of limelight from that, and they were able to sell their show and their thing. They were able to do their promo off that. We're seeing this with Ryan Garcia. Like, he's become the tide that floats all boats. So people are talking about Devin. We're not talking about Teo. We're talking about Ryan Garcia. It's not Ryan Garcia. We're talking about Tank Davis. We're talking about Shakur Stevenson now. We're talking about Frank Martin. Suddenly, all of these things that were kind of under the radar are now bubbling up. We're talking about Pitbull Cruz. We'll talk about the 147 guys. So Hearns now put Ennis's name into this mix. Errol Spencer's name is in the mix. And I think these sort of moments are good for boxing because it just reminds people that, you know, there are loads of opportunities for people to make money, and there are loads of fights that we could be entertained if they got made. So that's the power of one of these moments in boxing. No apologies, just had to have my front door fixed. So I have no idea where I was, but I know we were talking about essentially how Ryan Garcia's reinflated the boxing market temporarily, and this attention is something that everyone should be capitalizing on. I'm surprised Josh Taylor and Jack Cattrall have been throwing their hats in the ring, which is a real shame. Let's just move on to what I wanted to talk about, and I probably missed this point at the beginning of this episode. If you go back, at no point did Ryan Garcia talk about being a world champion. At no point did he talk about winning a belt. At no point did Ryan Garcia indicate any ambition to be a world champion. And I read from that pretty quickly that he was only there to beat Devin Haney. This was personal. I don't think Devin really understood how personal this was to Ryan, because all Ryan had heard was, yes, you won the first three, but he won the second three. And that lives with you. So I don't know the time spacings between the first three bouts, but the second three, it was just over a year, or just under a year. There wasn't much in it, you know what I mean? So Ryan came for a seek and destroy mission. He set himself up to do that, and he did that. You know, Devin's got a belt, but that belt's worthless now because we know he lost. Why Mauricio Suleiman would let him keep the belt, I don't know. I think that belt should go vacant. I think Devin should have to fight for it again against someone. Put Pitbull Cruz in there, because right now the WBC champion at 140 pounds is pretty hollow as far as I'm concerned. But let's just quickly touch on this. Where the hell is Floyd? Because normally on Instagram you're used to Floyd. He shows you the cars, he shows you the strip club, the roller skate rink. He shows you his life. And all we've seen of Floyd in the last 10 days or so is him seemingly looking like he's in Abu Ghraib, right? He does. He looks like he's in Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, no idea where. And he also seems to have let go of his social media account because they're posting really generic posts like someone else is managing it. And we've heard everything. We've heard that Floyd owes money for jewelry. We've heard that the government in Dubai are holding him and all these sorts of things. What's clear is that there's something not right. Now, I don't know if it's that Floyd owes money, because you imagine that Mayweather can pay debts off. And if he can't, someone can front Floyd the money. Mayweather is still a valuable brand. He could do an exhibition. He could do anything, and he could make that money. So I have no idea. Is it that, sometimes maybe he's had a breakdown. And that's why people are speculating on where he is. Maybe he's had a breakdown. Maybe he's going through stuff. I have no idea. But all we can do is hope that Mayweather's okay. Because people say, oh, he's burned through his money. I find that hard to believe. But I also don't find it hard to believe. Maybe I just don't want to believe he's burned through all his money. Because Floyd seems to have been the boxer who did boxing perfectly. And if he did lose all of his money, then you just go, there's no hope for anybody. You know, we all got to see Mike Tyson make it and lose it all, and then make it all back again. And we've got countless tales of boxers working on the underground, bus drivers, all these sorts of things. And it's not a lucrative game. I remember there's a video Mikey Garcia did, and they asked him a question. If a boxer gets a $1 million purse, how much do you reckon he takes home? And he said about 360 grand. And he's like, yeah, after everyone's taken their cut, it's about 360 grand. And to everyone listening, 360 grand is great until you realize how few people get it and how short that window of opportunity is. So the taxman loves it. Your manager loves it. Your trainer, a little less so. But everyone else loves it except you, because you're the one that when your career's done, there's nothing left to do. And that's the real shame. You know, the worst thing is, you'd almost want the board to have a pension plan in place or some kind of savings plan in place. You'd almost want the board to have some kind of support for these boxers, but the sport's so corrupt that you wouldn't even trust that anyway. You know they'd be spending the boxers' money on other stuff, and then they say, "Oh, we were going to pay it back." So I don't have a lot of hope for the future of boxers. All I can ever say is, the first time you make a purse like that, save it. Save it, put it into something that's going to keep churning over an income, because you're going to need that income one day. I think that's one of the messages like I learned of Dennis was, don't fall in love with the money, fall in love with the opportunity. And I think a lot of the guys that worked with Dennis have been able to, well, the ones that delivered for him, I'll say, have been able to look after themselves into retirement and beyond. Do you know what? I watched Jose Ramirez against Rances Barthélemy over the weekend. Now, Rances Barthélemy is a guy, been Facebook friends with that guy for years, man. How we became cool, I have no idea, but I've got a lot of time for him. I think really, really talented fighter, just been really unlucky with the politics of boxing. He deserved a better career, and he should have had a few more of those $1 million paydays. He deserves them for his talent, but hey, listen, life gets in the way. But he fought Jose Ramirez, and I've sort of started to look at guys like Jose Ramirez and Prograis, and you benchmark them against these guys like Tank, Haney, Garcia, even Teo. And then you go, did Josh Taylor become undisputed in a really easy era? Or are we judging these guys in their decline versus the guys in their peak? I don't know, because if you look at it, right, since that undisputed fight, what has Josh Taylor really done? Nothing. What has Prograis really done? Nothing. What has Jose Ramirez really done? Nothing. What has Baranchik done? Really nothing. Postal. None of the guys from that tournament that crowned an undisputed fighter have kicked on. We thought Josh would clear up at 140, move to 147, fight Crawford, move on. He dodged a bullet on that one. Here he is now, just messing about with Jack Catterall. Like, he would have fought Jack Catterall around the time he fought O'Hara Davis, so it feels like a regression. This idea that Jack Catterall's this really good boxer is the same nonsense they fed you with Devin Haney. Like, oh, he beat Linares. Like, Linares is a super feather that boxes at 140. It's embarrassing that people even take pride in a win over Linares at anything above 130 pounds, because even at 130 pounds, he was brittle. And please don't tell Eddie Scotney I said that. But you now have to start looking at Josh's career and go, oh, what was that undisputed run? And his undisputed run was better than Crawford's at 140. And so let's go back and start looking at this notion of undisputed. What does it really mean? The only undisputed run I really look at and go, okay, cool. Well, there's two. There's Jamel Charlo's, and I'm talking just recent memory, Jamel Charlo's and Alexander Usyk's. Because the guys that they beat are still competitive now. You know, Bradis will fight for the IBF. I mean, a lot of those guys he beat were competitive afterwards. So I can give those guys credit for their undisputed runs. But look at Crawford. Crawford became undisputed at 140 by beating Errol Spence, who got mangled in a car crash. I mean, his head probably got severed off and reattached. That might be a cyborg in that ring. That wasn't the fresh Errol Spence. That wasn't the Errol Spence that guys like Sean Porter had to fight. That wasn't the same Errol Spence that guys like Mikey Garcia had to fight. This is for a fact. And then that Crawford's run at 140, fighting guys like Delorme and come on, man. Ndongo. Ndongo. Do you see what I mean? So you have to start questioning not necessarily their careers, because I think Crawford's had a great career. I think Crawford is a great fighter. But you have to question these Undisputed runs and whether they're worth it or not. We just became fixated on Undisputed because of Joshua. When he started that road to Undisputed, that's when all this nonsense started. But it doesn't mean anything. And we've seen that with Josh Taylor. His career post Undisputed has been crap. So what do you do? But I saw in Ramirez, that's not a guy that's going to be challenging these young bucks. Look too vulnerable. I think Barthelomew's good, but if you have aspirations to be at the top of a division, you should be handling those fights easier. I can see Ramirez fighting Prograis again. It's getting two old timers, another payday before they ride off into the sunset. Don't let Rick hear this, because is it Rick Mirrigan? McGinn? I don't even know, but he'll go mad if he hears this. Maybe put one of those guys in with Barroso. Let's get some entertaining fights at 140, because that's now becoming the hot division, isn't it? 140, that 140 to 147. But I'm going to ask you guys a question. Are the belts relevant anymore? Like, you're looking at Garcia and Teo are talking about fighting at a catchweight. Like, neither wants to make 140. They don't quite want to touch 147. They're like, let's fight at a catchweight. There'll be no belt there. If Haney fights Garcia again, it'll be at a catchweight. Haney will not be making 140 again. So who cares about the belts? We've allowed the belts to become so devalued now that we don't care anymore, and we just want the fights that we want. And that's a real shame, because there was a time when the belts meant something. It was something to aspire to. Now you're aspiring to a payday. You're aspiring to making those 7, 8, 9-figure paydays. And that's success in boxing. That's your legacy. It's no longer the belt you won and who you took them off. It is literally how much money did you make. That's why people are talking about Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney doing this many millions in purses and this many million pay-per-view buys. And it's all nonsense, by the way. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's smoke and mirrors, because no one's really watching boxing like that. As much as people want to bask in the glow of what happened, no one's watching boxing like they're trying to tell you. And it's sad. But I guess that's where we are. So can we talk about Chris Eubank Jr. and maybe the weirdest scenario that we face right now? So we've got Frank Smith on Boxing King Media answering questions about Eubank Jr., who, to all intents and purposes, is his brother-in-law, right? And he's like, well, I don't know what he's going to do. So, but you're his brother-in-law. Like, pillow talk. Come on, man. You do know what he's going to do. For context, Eubank Jr. has left Wasserman. It seemed like a partnership that made zero sense, by the way. They don't have a pay-per-view platform. The deal with Sky's clearly gone sour. Sky don't want to work with him, it would seem. The Conor Benn fight, I'm not going to say it's dead in the water, but it's dead for now. So without the Conor Benn fight and without a pay-per-view outlet, what is the point in having a promoter like that? But the problem is, Chris has kind of been through everyone now. So what does he do? Does he go back to Hennessy? Does he go to Hearn? Does he go to Frank? And it ultimately depends on what Eubank Jr. wants to do. If you look at America right now, who could he fight? He could fight a Berlanga, he could fight a Munguia, he could fight a Canelo. So maybe he does need to do business with the zone. Now, whether that's Golden Boy, whether that's another platform, whether he does it with Matchroom, I don't know. But he has to be on one of those platforms now. Because the only fights that make sense at this stage in Eubank's career are those sorts of fights. The money fights, the Caleb Plant, for example, Jamal Charlo, Canelo, Munguia, Berlanga. There's nothing domestically that makes sense. Even the Conor Benn fight, it's mired in so much negativity now that it's not even going to do his legacy any good. And he can't sell it as, I'm going to beat some respect into him. It's like, well, we're trying to keep drug chiefs out the sport. So maybe they need to freeze him out. And also, I think as he gets older, he can't make 160. So why would he even bother trying? But how do you assess his career? if you look at his record, he's made a lot of money for a guy with that record. He has a Liam Williams record. Liam Williams doesn't have Eubank money, but he has a Liam Williams type record. And he's made all that money and he's able to put himself in that position. And I'm not mad at Eubank Jr., by the way. Credit to him. And he seems the sort of guy who's smart, considered, and focused, and understands that he can't allow himself to burn through the money he's making in boxing. So I think you'll see probably 2 or 3 more fights from Eubank, but they'll all be big ones. And he'll just portray himself as a bad guy. We won't mind seeing him get beat up, and he'll make 5 to 7 million off each fight. And then that'll be his career. Whether he stays in the sport, no idea. But he's the kind of guy who could turn his hand to anything. I think he's been a fantastic ambassador for the sport. And I don't want to write off his career yet, but you have to give the guy his flowers while he's still boxing. He's done a lot for British boxing from a position not many people generally succeed from. Like, look at Conor Benn, where you look at his record, you go, he hasn't fought anyone. You can't say that about Eubank. He has fought people. And he's put himself in harm's way. And you have to respect that about him. I'm trying to think of how many second-gen guys have done that. Marvis Fraser did it as well, much to his eternal regret. But not many. Corey Spinks, a guy who never gets talked about enough, by the way. Corey Spinks, a boxing legend that never gets the respect he deserves, mainly because of Mayweather. If there was no Mayweather, we'd be talking Corey Spinks. I might be wrong, but I swear Corey Spinks held either 3 or 4 of the belts at 147 at one point. I don't think it was ever undisputed, so it's probably 3 of the 4 belts he held. And he doesn't get talked about. It just goes to show how fickle boxing is. You know, if you're not on social media, if you're not on the YouTube videos, you don't get spoken about, which is a shame, man. It's a crying shame. I'm trying to think, where we need to shift to. Let's talk Canelo. It's Canelo fight week. We're a fair way into it, but it seems these fight weeks get shorter, so people literally just dip in, do their media, weigh in and fight now. There's none of this public workout stuff, none of the stuff that used to happen before. I guess people just don't care anymore. But what are Canelo's options now? He's going to fight Munguia. He's got to do something in September, and it's got to be something lucrative. But who do you want to see Canelo face? He could fight Bivol, he could fight Benavidez. They're really the options he has. If it's a legacy thing and it's a respect for the fans thing, that's who he'd fight. If it's I need to make some money real quick, they'll rehash Jamal Charlo, or they'll dig up someone. There might be a Berlanga out there, or like I keep saying, the wild card is Canelo just says I'm off to the UK to fight Eubank Jr. But at this point, Canelo's just chasing the biggest paydays. What is he going to do? He's already been undisputed. He's already fought at 175. He's done 160 to death. He's done 154. There's actually nothing left for Canelo to do. He's just hoovering up money. So this expectation that he's going to do what the fans need him to do, throw that out the window. He's going to do what the money dictates he does. And he's becoming increasingly expensive to promote in a market that's shrinking every year. So does he take smaller purses, or does he just go, I'm done here and I retire? Because this Munguia fight is not capturing the public's attention like some of his other fights have. And the thing is, people will give you all sorts of reasons why Canelo shouldn't fight Benavidez, this, that, and the third. The truth is he should. And if he doesn't fight Benavidez, that Benavidez question will hang over his career. It won't diminish his career, but it will look at this phase in his career and say, you didn't want that. And it points to a wider trend, right? I don't believe you're meant to go into the sunset undefeated after boxing. I don't. I don't believe that, like I keep saying, like, you've got to leave the money in the sport. Calzaghe should have left that money in the sport. He should have. Mayweather probably should have left that money in the sport. Canelo, he's left some, but he can leave more money in the sport. And you have to make guys. It's the same way that when you watch wrestling, The Undertaker had to lose to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. He had to give Brock some of that rub. Hulk Hogan had to lose to the Ultimate Warrior to give Warrior that rub. Warrior had to lose to whoever, Randy Savage. The Rock had to lose to Stone Cold. Stone Cold had to lose to The Rock. Like, you have to pass the love and affection of the fans on so the sport continues. It's not about making another man rich. It's about making sure the sport continues to be healthy. And we don't do enough of that. And as fans, we don't push for that enough. And you start with Mayweather. It's happening with Canelo. This idea that you're just going to sort of gently ride out into the sunset, that you're not going to let one of these young guys get their opportunity. But for today, I'd just like to wrap up with a focus on the amateurs. And I promise, don't switch off, because it's not really about the boxing, but it's this great story that's emerging. And I think it's just sort of started in the last couple of days. So if we go back a few weeks, the Irish had to pick their squad for their Olympic qualifiers. And it was based on who did what in what they call the elites, so their ABAs, right? So if you did well in that, you got your chance to compete for an Olympic place. So Amy Broadhurst didn't. And now the problem Amy's had is I think she's been carrying injuries for a while, and she had to get some stuff fixed. So she hasn't been active this year like she had been before. And I think that ring rust caught up with her. So she was unsuccessful. But remember, this is a young woman who's won World, European, World Juniors, European Junior. She's basically won everything an amateur boxer can win. And the Irish Amateur Boxing Association are like, nah, we're not going to pick her. That's what they said. We're not going to pick her for one of the qualifiers. And you're like, huh? And she's had to fight in a higher weight class. She's naturally a 60, but Kelly Harrington's a 60, and Kelly's Olympic champion. And it seems Kelly's going to defend her title, become two-time Olympic champion. And why wouldn't you? To elevate her above Katie Taylor in the national consciousness. So I can understand why you'd want to do that. So for a long time, Amy Broadhurst has waited for that 60 slot to free up so she can take over from Kelly Harrington. Once Kelly was going to renew, it was like, well, they're not going to not let Kelly defend her title. So what do? Move up to a higher weight class. And that's where she struggled. So Amy was sat on the sidelines. And I know the talks with GB started almost immediately, where they said, do you want to come and box for us? And GB did their due diligence and checked that she was eligible. And she is. And the reason she is, because I don't think there's a stand-down period. So she already qualified for Team GB. For context, she had boxed in the UK for years. She boxed for Islington, won titles here for the record. So she's won titles under the British boxing governance model. So this isn't someone who's just been grandfathered in. It's someone who's earned the love and respect of boxers, coaches, and administrators in this country. So they said, do you want to box for Team GB at the Olympics at 60 kilos? Yeah. They just said, we're going to take a young woman from Ireland whose dad was born here, and she has boxed under the auspices here. I think she might even have a British passport. And they've said, look, come and qualify under our umbrella and then go do the Olympics at 60 kilos. Right? Now, everyone's now thinking, hold on, don't we have people at 60 kilos? Yes, we do. We've got a young woman called Shona Whitwell, who's supremely talented, unbelievably tall at the weight, a bit like Amy. Amy's got a bit of height to her. Really, slick, skillful, could really fight. I think there's a young woman called Gemma Richardson as well, who was in the mix for that. Now, Shona's been boxing her whole life. Her dad is Steve Whitwell, who runs St. Ives Boxing Club. Really nice man. A pillar in the community, great ambassador for the sport, all of that. And he's done amazing with his daughters, Shona and Harley Whitwell as well, who's now a professional. He's done amazing with them. I've got to see them box live. I think they're both class. So it means essentially, because there's only one qualifier left, Shona and Gemma do not get to qualify. And if Amy does qualify, that's them done anyway. So that's where we are. Now, why is this a big deal? I'm going to explain why it's a big deal. So I probably swim against the tide on this one. I'll give you my opinion first. My opinion on all of this is, because GB get their funding on Olympic medals, McCracken doesn't think of anything other than who can win us medals. If McCracken felt I could win a medal at 92 kilograms, he would pick me right now. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about grassroots boxing. He doesn't care about the pyramid. He doesn't care about what Steve Whitwell's done with his daughter. He doesn't care that Steve was looking forward to going to Paris to watch his daughter box. He doesn't care. He just cares about this. I need to win as many medals as I can to keep the funding going. And so Rob McCracken had this horrible question. At 60 kilograms, who is more likely to get me a gold medal? Is it the woman from Ireland who has won everything up until this point? Or is it the young, talented girl who has shown herself to be good, but also shown herself to be injury prone and maybe not got the key wins in tournaments you would want? Right? That's essentially what you're looking at. He's there going, is Amy Broadhurst better than the 60 kilo women I have now? And the answer is yes. And it's uncomfortable, by the way, because like if I'm Steve and my daughter's just been overlooked for the sake of funding, I'd be annoyed too. Yeah, so I've got 100% sympathy with him, with Shona, with the whole family. And I can see why they're very vocal on social media. They deserve to be. So the other side in the sport is it makes a mockery of the pyramid. What is the point in building up kids to go to GB if GB would just pick whoever they can to win medals, even people outside of the system? So it's causing this split now where people are saying, we don't want our money to go to GB. It doesn't benefit us as grassroots clubs. And so we're back to where we were in 2016 where people were like, where's the money going? We're not happy with where the money's going. This is why London wanted to separate from England boxing. And London wanted to do its own thing, get its own funding, and build that way. Because I can't remember what it is over an Olympic cycle. Let's just say it's 15 million quid that England boxing get. A big chunk of that goes to Team GB. It doesn't filter down. It doesn't filter down so we can do things like in big cities, run weekly gyms where kids can just fight. Yeah? That's what we need. And so, for example, in London, that's what we need. Every week, we hire out, I don't know, a leisure centre in Tottenham or a leisure centre in Crystal Palace. We put 3 or 4 rings up and kids just fight. That's all. Kids just fight every week if they want to. And we can get our kids from 0 to 50 bouts, 60 bouts quickly. And we can get them seasoned and experienced. We need money to do that. And we do the same in Liverpool, in Bristol, in Manchester, in Leeds, in Newcastle, Sunderland. We should be doing that every week. Just running them. And you know, like, if you got a fight, you just put it through and go, right, there you go, guys, we got a fight sorted. And then it means you can show up as a spare if you weigh in and someone's pulled out. Just get the fights going. Instead, we're sending these guys to Colorado for training camps. And to be honest, if you've seen the squad we've got right now, it's not very good. This is the elephant in the room. Rob McCracken, and be under no illusion, Rob McCracken's job is on the line this summer. Because Rob benefited a lot from Terry Edwards, because Terry Edwards was able to identify real talent. And all Rob had to do was make it strong, make it fit. And that was it. Like he did with Carl Froch. Rob McCracken made Carl strong, he made Carl fit, and he helped Carl prepare to get on the start line. I don't think stylistically he added much to Carl Froch. I don't think you can. I think Carl's just Carl. And you see that a lot with the GB guys. If you notice, from 2012, we reach a certain level. 2016, it gets weaker. 2020 is even weaker. Now with 2024, we're struggling. We're struggling for golds. I couldn't tell you anyone from GB who's got a chance to win a gold, apart from Amy Broadhurst. And she's from Ireland. So there's a real chance that we come back with 2 or 3 bronzes and that's it. Then your funding goes down. Now, grassroots clubs don't care because it's only GB. But once your funding goes down, your prep goes down. You can't hand out as many contracts. You can't do this. Because remember, some of these guys are pulling in, 75, 80 grand a year. How many shows would that help subsidize in London? Loads. And this is the issue. The money's been going to the wrong places for a long time. The argument holds true. We haven't been picking the best boxers. We've not been picking the most talented guys. We've been picking guys that McCracken likes. We've been picking guys that McCracken can work with. There are even rumors that Amy Broadhurst was selected on the expectation that when she turns pro, she will train with Rob McCracken or his brother. I can't remember which one it was. That's where we're at. And a lot of grassroots clubs are annoyed because this isn't what they signed up for. So that's the politics of it. Here's the beautiful thing about this story. And I'm going to go on the assumption that everyone qualifies. If everyone who should qualify for the Olympics qualifies, the biggest story in boxing is going to be the women's 60-kilogram amateur boxing tournament. I'm going to tell you why. You're going to have the 2016 champion Estelle Mosley there. You're going to have the 2020 champion Kelly Harrington there. You're going to have Beatrice Ferreira, a professional world champion there. You're going to have Amy Broadhurst, Kelly's longtime rival there. And you're going to have all of these subplots to the point where if they all qualify and they get the seedings right, and you get those four in the semi-finals, that's going to be the biggest. That's going to be the biggest thing in women's sport. They talk about Angel Reese and Caitlin Jackson. This is bigger than that because these are real rivalries. These are real rivalries. Because for a long time, Kelly felt she was the best and she got held back by Katie Taylor. So Kelly and Katie Taylor are cordial, but they're not cool. Katie Taylor and Amy Broadhurst, super cool. So there's always that tension. You've never really seen Kelly and Amy be cool. I don't know if there is real tension, but you've got that. Estelle Mosley's going to come back. Has the game moved on from where she was in 2016? Is it more physical now and less technical? You got B. Ferreira coming through. There's going to be some Olympic-style testing. So will she be okay with that? I don't know. But you got this subplot at 60 that isn't going to be in any other division in men's boxing. There's nothing is going to come close to Mosley, Harrington, Broadhurst, Ferreira if they come together. And I'm probably forgetting other people, right? But that 60 kilos is going to pop. That's going to be the one. So, yes, I understand the drama involved in, should Amy be part of the squad or not? But if she gets to the Olympics, we're going to get some real intrigue. Like, that will be worth going to Paris for. Like, I'm sold on that idea, actually. I think that will be a good move. But we'll see how that plays out. But I think to summarize that position, when McCracken had a gun put to his head, and it was, who's going to win us medals? He said, we need to get Amy in. If ever there was a bigger kick in the nuts for British amateur boxing, I'm yet to see it. But that's a massive kick in the nuts. I understand why he did it, because he's fighting for his job, but I don't even think he'll keep it past the summer. He's fighting for his job, and he has to go to what he can trust. And he doesn't trust Shona Whitwell, and he doesn't trust Gemma. In the same way he doesn't trust a load of other people. But let's see where this GB squad ends up after the Olympics. And let's see how many end up working with a McCracken of some description or McCracken affiliates. Because it's been a very incestuous and some would say corrupt world up at GB for a long, long time. And I think that's a good point to tap out and say, yeah, flat week in boxing, but Amy Broadhurst was able to rouse the fury of the boxing masses. So listen, guys, have a great week. As always, if you enjoy the content, share it. Thanks to everyone who sends the questions in on Instagram. Like those Wednesday night sessions, they just make the walk a lot better. Those are the nights I can do 15,000 steps or whatever it is and just answer those questions. So thoroughly enjoy that, guys. Thank you for doing it. It's always appreciated. And on that note, I want to tap out and say take care.
Pop, pop, bang! Porky's Corner is proud to be sponsored by Spartan Site Solutions. They are specialists in civil engineering and demolition contracts for the construction industry. Interested parties should visit their website or contact Porky's Corner for a referral at porkycorner@mail.com.